Hello, hello. Welcome back to Sit and See. I'm Dr. Jared Jones. My research specialties are ancient systems of meditation, the cognitive science of meditation, Buddhist philosophy, and the philosophy of science. This is part of a series where I'm teaching people meditation every day here on YouTube, focused mainly on making meditation more accessible to lay people living in the real world. So if that sounds like something interesting to you, then I'm here almost every day at 8:30 London time. Now, as we get started here today, I'm going to put something in the chat for those of you who stumble on this later. The thing that's been on my mind for the last several weeks, as those of you who are my regulars already know, is Lohan Palm. So the 18 Lohan Palm system is a system that transitions from working with the physical body to working with the subtler energetic aspects of the body, a term I don't really like, but we're kind of stuck with it, over to the mind and the mental aspects that make you up as a being. So I've been working with a gentleman by the name of Neil Ripsky to create a course that integrates the techniques that I teach with this entire 18 Lohan Palm system. So that's going to be available at lohanpalm.com, and it's live now finally after many weeks of work, maybe about 400 hours of thinking things through and putting things together. We are now live, and things are rocking and rolling, and just uploaded the first portion of the meditation techniques that I teach to the course today. So pretty cool, pretty cool. Right. So for those of you who might be stumbling through, a little bit new to the whole class, the way this works is that for the first 30 minutes or so, I answer questions about meditation and your personal practice. And then as time goes on, when we get to about the 9 o'clock mark or so, then we switch over and we do about 30 minutes of practice, usually. And depending upon the day, I may or may not take questions after that, depending upon the temperature in the room. Although it's been quite a while since I did an open Q&A, so I think that after today's session, I'll probably do an open Q&A session. So I'll transition over from this session into a live Q&A for those who are interested. Okay. So for now, do we have any questions? So if you guys don't ask questions, then I have to ramble on about whatever happens to be on my mind, which could be good, it could be bad. So if there is anything on your mind, just go ahead and come on out with it. In terms of your personal meditation practice, whatever you're struggling with, whatever's coming up in your practice, I'm happy to do my very best, at least, to answer your questions. Hello, Wombat. Welcome back. Welcome back indeed. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any questions come in, so I suppose I will just ramble on and talk about what's on my mind. So this yesterday, I started working on the. Sorry, one moment, my friends. Yesterday, I started working on the meditation portion for the early part of the Lohan course, and that was working. That's working quite well. Basically, with Neil's material, it's in the beginning it's mostly physical, but very quickly you start transitioning into something that's like body scanning meditation. Although body scanning meditation in the internal arts community usually comes along with negong, usually comes along with building an internal skill at the same time, not just scanning with your mind. And so I've been working on trying to create a smooth bridge between intensive breath meditation, which many of you have done with me, body scanning meditation, which is only really missing one piece if it was to become a negong, and then proper full on negong practice. So for those who are interested, something becomes negong. Something becomes negong when you, how do I say, when you start to apply not just awareness to the body in the way that you teach in body scanning, but it becomes negong when you start doing something with the body as you're scanning through, if that makes sense. So, in modern psychological literature, this type of practice could be called, in some cases, something like what is the term they use? Progressive release practice. So, a progressive release practice is when not only do you become aware of the mind, the body as you're going through in the way that we train in my material, but you also deliberately release any extra muscular tension that you find in the body as you go through that didn't need to be there. And then, of course, if you're trying to develop certain types of internal skills for various reasons, whether those are to prepare you to do Qigong or Neigong or just to do Chinese internal martial arts in general, then you may be doing those releases in particular patterns that are beneficial for those practices, if that makes sense. So I was spending some time over the last few days trying to make sure that I was tuning the things that I'm teaching in the course, without doing anything I wouldn't normally do in terms of teaching. Tuning the things that I'm teaching to that context. Right. So one of you, at least in the past, has asked me about whether or not you release with your mind, whether or not you're doing sort of a releasing practice with your mind as you go through. Generally speaking, if you're doing the type of meditation that I teach for body scanning, you're not doing a releasing practice at the same time. You could do it at the same time, but generally speaking, I don't teach it that way. The reason being that if you're doing something else deliberately with your mind, if you guys are following me, if you're doing something else deliberately with your mind, rather than simply and merely observing what is there, when the mind comes to behold some new part of the body internally, then you're not actually training the same type of mental activity. They're very related, obviously. Obviously, they're related. If you can do one, you can probably do some of the other, right? That should make sense. Hey Jay, but they don't necessarily come together. And if you were training specifically to transition yourself from um, how do I say, if you were training specifically to try to transition from body awareness over to a more fundamental type of awareness of the components that make up your being, it's going to be more beneficial, let's say, to do the type of practice where you're simply becoming aware of the parts of the body without modifying what you find there. Does that make sense? So the less modification you're doing, the more you're sort of becoming aware of what that type of mind is like, in addition to whatever it is you're beholding. But if your mind is very busy with not only beholding what's there or seeing what's there, for lack of a better term, but also doing something with what it has found, now it's engaging in another activity besides simply reflecting, a bit like a mirror, whatever happened to be there, just observing. So now it's going to notice, it's going to look, it's going to analyze and go, this bit doesn't need to be here. I'm going to release that bit. and then go to the next part and do the same thing. Again, incredibly important skill for all sorts of things to do with internal martial arts, qigong, neigong, these other kinds of practices. But um, the and those two will support each other. If you can do release practice, very progressive release practice, very well, it's this kind of neigong, then you'll be able to do better body scans and vice versa. In any case, I've been thinking a bit about this for those of you who are interested, because at some point I have to film the material for my body scanning, for the body scanning portion of the meditation material in the Lohan course. And so I've been thinking about a little bit about the relationships between these two types of practice. Which on the surface, I think, if you were a beginner, you would think, oh, these are exactly the same practice, right? They seem substantially similar. they, they seem virtually the same. You're going through the whole body, becoming aware of the whole body. So it doesn't seem like there's very much difference between these things. I don't think. Right. So 21:30. Ah, question coming in. Ooh, more questions coming in. Exciting. Exciting, exciting. Here we go. Okay, using tactile sense gate as an example, I feel I'm having a problem with being aware of the space without tensing either my skull or that area in particular. That's a good point. I was just setting up the live stream for after. I'm going to do an open Q&A after this session. The question coming, is the tension coming from my face or skull? Is it because that is the location of where my mind is? Okay, so generally speaking, if you're generating a lot of concentration, if you're trying to generate a lot of concentration, at least as a relatively ordinary person, let's say, what you tend to do is you do this. Right? You tense the shoulders up, and maybe you hunch forward a little bit, and you scrunch up your forehead. You know, like think about when you see an older people do this a lot more, I think, because it's harder for them to see too, but they go, right, like when you're really focusing. So this is just sort of a thing. At some point your concentration will get good enough that it doesn't require all that extra physical stuff, but you can have tension in the forehead while you're training in concentration. You can have tension that seems like it's in the neck, but I think generally speaking it's not in the neck. It's usually in the shoulders here, because you've rolled the shoulders forward like this, and not only that, you've raised them up. So you've raised them up and pulled them forward to focus forward on what you're doing. And the more you train, the less that'll happen. But in the beginning, it's hard to take those two apart, because the body and mind are, you can't actually take the two apart fully until you're dead. Don't do that. Try not to do that soon. Okay. Right. All right. So what else? What else is on everyone's minds in terms of your practice? What's coming up? You can share experiences, share questions, share good things, bad things that have happened, and I'm happy to respond. I had a very interesting conversation today with a young gentleman about anger. And it's always surprising to me, maybe because I've been doing this for so long, when I talk to somebody who's never encountered really the full, whatever you'd like to call it, the full like a full description of how you would use the tools that you find in meditative schools to actually transform your mind, you know? And so we're having this conversation about anger, and I just walked him through a rumination on anger and why the things that anger does. So consider, for example, that anger, when you get angry, you don't make decisions that are as good, right? So the likelihood is that if your mind is out of control in terms of anger, throughout the course of your life, you're going to make worse decisions. And on top of that, the consequences are usually bad from anger, right? Usually the consequences aren't good. Sometimes they're good, but mostly they're bad. Where because you were angry, you made a really bad decision you wouldn't normally make. And in making that decision, you now have to deal with the consequences of your deluded, confused thinking at the time, because you hurt your girlfriend or you hurt your boyfriend or you hurt your kids' feelings, or you said something dumb to your landlord, or you said something stupid to an employee, or you said something stupid to your boss, and now you have to deal with whatever the consequences are. And if you were to think of your anger as if it was another person, consider what that person would be like. Imagine if there was someone you knew. Oh, by the way, they've also done research on this and found that anger makes your health worse. So getting angry slowly makes your health worse over time if you get angry a lot. So imagine this, right? Imagine that there was someone that you knew that was close by and you saw all the time, that made your friends like you less, made your family like you less, made your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife like you less, made your kids like you less. When people saw you because of this person and the things that they said, they would avoid you and like go the other way or walk around the neighborhood because they know that you're there. And not only that, they would go around and tell people, oh, actually, he's kind of a piece of crap, and you shouldn't help this guy. If something good happens to him, what you should think is he doesn't deserve that because he's kind of a prick, right? And then on top of that, imagine this person was like secretly poisoning your coffee or something so that your health was getting worse every day. Can you imagine if somebody like this was in your life? You would immediately cut them out of your life, wouldn't you? Somebody that's undermining every relationship you have, maybe costing you where you live, maybe costing you your job, maybe costing you your relationship, maybe ruining your relationships with family or friends or kids, making you miss opportunities, ruining your health. And on top of this, making people think that you don't deserve anything you get and that you shouldn't be helped, and that, right? Because this is what you think. If you think about somebody that's really angry and kind of a prick, when you see something good happen to them, you go, they don't deserve that. They shouldn't have that. And sometimes, even if you've been practicing a while, sometimes you think maybe it'd be better if they weren't around. Right? These are the things that we think. We can't help it. It just sort of comes up. If you had a friend, if you knew someone close to you that was running around saying and doing all of this stuff, you would want nothing to do with them. And yet, this is what anger is doing to you right now. Your anger, your frustration is doing everything we just said. I mean, how horrifying is this? And then on the other hand, patience improves every opportunity, improves every relationship, improves your health, makes other people go, I hope it turns out well for him. He works so hard. He's so patient. He can deal with anything. He really deserves to have something nice, right? So think about this. So patience is like better than some of your best friends, maybe. So I was having this conversation with a young gentleman, and I could just see the sort of the penny. I could see the penny drop where he went, "Oh my gosh!" Like if you were going to be angry at anybody, you should be angry at anger. If you're going to be angry at anything, you should be angry at the anger. The anger is the problem, not the world. Okay, let's look at some questions. Meditation shawl. Yeah, it's up to you. What I generally say is do whatever helps. Whatever helps to make you comfortable and makes the sessions go better, especially in the early days. Do whatever helps. Some have been telling me they don't see me as emotionally as expressive as they would wish. So early on in training and meditation, quite often, um, it can make your emotions sort of blunted. And as you have all probably noticed, it seems like, I would imagine, and from the outside, sort of seeing how I look and so forth, it seems like I have a lot of emotions. I would imagine, right? So in the beginning, I think, especially if you're training pretty hardcore in meditation, you think that like having no emotions is the thing to do. But actually, the project isn't to not have any emotions. The project is to have only beneficial states of mind, which includes beneficial emotions, so that your mind becomes whatever's required at that time for the situation, not just for your benefit, but for the benefit of others. So we were just talking about patience, so that when something happens, instead of frustration, anger, the patience comes up. But the patience is a mental attitude, a mental approach to the situation. Likewise, loving kindness, compassion come up when they're relevant. Likewise, joy comes up when it's relevant. Likewise, rejoicing. Oh, wow, that's great. Well done. Joy, rejoicing comes up when it's relevant. So that the activities on the surface of the mind come ultimately to benefit the activities you're doing with subtler layers of your mind. Because there's stuff you can do on the surface of your mind that benefits your practice of trying to do stuff with the layers that are underneath, let's say. Does that make sense? So yeah, I mean, I think it's quite common, especially if you're talking about um, there are sort of steps and stages where you're like, if you're training in the beginning in Mahamudra, first you just have to get your mind to be in a state that's quite different than it's been in before. And getting your mind increasingly in that state is so demanding in terms of your attention, there's not much room for other stuff. But eventually, part of the concentration from day to day is that you're aware of the contents of your mind and you can deliberately create what you'd like to be there. And that's part of the Mahamudra practice. It's part of the play of mind. That it's part of the, how to say, as one great practitioner was telling me a few days ago, he goes, there's a playfulness to it. There's an enjoyment to the sort of flexibility and the play and the use of all of the things that are there to be able to use, not just the concentration, but everything. Being able to use the intellect in a way that's concordant with what you're doing, being able to use the emotions in a way that's concordant with what you're doing. So that, as I've said in many times, like with the Lohan thing, you're learning how to take more and more and more and more of you and aiming it in the same direction. So that doesn't mean you stop having emotions. And at some point, if your conceptual thoughts go away, there are other things that can come in, right? There are other things that, on the outside at least, they look just like emotions. So it shouldn't look like you're some unusual stone wall of a human being. Yeah, when I first got married, Jay, when I first got married, my wife had that same complaint of me because I spent the first several years of our relationship, I was training pretty hardcore in Mahamudra with my teacher, and it was new. And mostly, I either felt joy or elation or peace, or you know, the full range of human emotions when my mind wasn't under control. So there was sort of this thing where my mind would go back and forth between basically a totally ordinary mind and a mind that was like the one you're describing. And she couldn't really figure it out, you know. I think it took her a long time to figure it out. And now, after many more years, there's a lot more happening on the surface than there was, because that's not out of alignment with the training. It's how to say. Think about the full range of virtuous qualities that's described in Buddhism: humility, patience, perseverance, compassion, love, mm, conscientiousness. There's a whole range of the a feeling of charity, a feeling of rejoicing in virtue. So there's a whole range of different states that your mind might be in. And then in addition to that, there's this thing, um, I won't use any specific examples, but some of you have kids, right? So think about an example where your child is about to do something that would really hurt them. Your child's about to do something that might permanently damage them or even kill them. So even when there's no anger, you raise your voice, right? You become scary, you become intense, even if you're not angry, because you have to leave an impression that's very strong on their mind. You're going to be in big trouble. You hear me? Right? So I make this face. Do you understand me? Right? But it's just a face. It's just a face and a voice. The feeling inside is love. The feeling inside is compassion, deep concern for how it's going to turn out for that person. The feeling inside isn't, oh, I hate you and I hope everything goes terribly. Right? So on the outside, all of the normal expressions of being a person should be there, actually. You like that? I should make that the image for the live stream. Jack Black makes that face all the time, and it cracks me up. Right. So you have a repertoire of stuff that is there to help other people. That might mean sometimes you yell. That might oh, you found the new emojis. Nice. That might mean sometimes you yell, sometimes you make a face, sometimes you do this, you do that, you laugh, you know? And none of it is fake. It's you're using the unit to do what helps. This makes Buddhist stuff sound really weird. No, but really, without being weird about it, your compassionate, loving feeling will make you raise your voice, will make you do whatever is needed for that situation to make it turn out well when it's your position, for example, to protect that person. So likewise, we were talking about violence. Somebody was asking about violence and how do you bring together violence and ahimsa, and violence and compassion, and violence and Buddhism in general. Well, if you're a bodhisattva, one of the bodhisattva vows is that you will yourself accumulate negative karma, that you will take the burden of doing actually harmful things onto yourself if it benefits other people. So in a situation where violence is called for, you summon not anger, not frustration, not hatred. You summon great force of compassion, that I'm going to do what's required to benefit the whole situation, not just me. I'm going to do what's required to benefit this person who's about to hurt somebody if I don't stop them. Because if they hurt somebody out of anger, hatred, greed, whatever, that's terrible karma for them. Not only that, this other person who's about to be harmed, this is going to be extremely unpleasant for them. So if I have the capability to stop it with a minimum amount of violence out of deep compassion, If I can stop it just by going, hey, listen, if you do this, you're going to be really uncomfortable in about 10 seconds. Leave. Get out of here. Right? If I can do this, make unpleasant sounds and an unpleasant face, and this person can leave, and they don't accumulate negative karma, they don't harm this person, boom, 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 because I look, I'm 6'3", I'm a big person, I look scary when I put on a scary face. If that's all it takes, do you understand what I mean? So the full range of expression of the whole unit of being a human being is available to you to benefit other beings. Yeah, so you do whatever's best, not just for you. You do the next right thing for others. You do the next right thing for the circumstance as a whole. You do the next right thing. It doesn't matter what the next right thing is. The next right thing is based upon you having the ability, as we've discussed before, when you think about, when you're looking at the screen and you see my hand moving, if this is where your awareness is, this is all the information that you have to work on, besides you being aware of yourself sitting in your room and seeing this part of the screen. If that's all the information you have to work on, that's not a lot of information. If you pull your mind back into a state of Mahamudra and you're taking in the entire screen, the entire room, it's a non-dual state of awareness, so huge amounts of your BS and whatever is out of the way, your ordinary sense of self-interest and self-desire and so forth is out of the way, and you look at the whole circumstance and make a decision out of that awareness, that decision is much better informed than the one that was just sitting there staring at my hand and being aware of who you think you are, which is not who you are, by the way, right? So training in this stuff should eventually, with some other work, you need to do some other things, should eventually you should start doing what is right, what is best for the whole circumstance, not just yourself, for other beings, not just yourself. But obviously, you also need to do the next right thing for you, right? The next right thing for you isn't the next right thing for the you that you think you are. It's the next right thing for that you that basically appears when you have non-dual awareness of your senses and your mind. So when you generate the appropriate state of mind, whatever flows out of that mind should be appropriate. So yeah, in terms of dealing with a situation, no, you don't have to. It depends upon you, right? And it depends upon the situation. Like if I do that with some people sometimes. They call me and I talk to them and they start saying stuff and I'm like, "You do realize you're completely full of shit, right?" No, really. It's beneficial. It's beneficial to be in circumstances sometimes where people are being harsh to you. Actually, I mean, I don't talk about this much, but my main teacher for 12 years was extremely harsh. I mean, he was like a hardcore Okinawan martial arts guy who worked in a hardcore industries on and off for most of his life, and he was carved out of steel, and he was not nice most of the time. I mean, you wouldn't know that by listening to the way that I teach. you know, I'm sort of like, let's laugh all the way to realization. Let's have a good time all the way until we have some capabilities. But my teacher was like very harsh and almost never gave a compliment. I can count on one badly mangled hand the times that he said I got something right or that he gave me a compliment of any kind. I think there were only 3 times in 12 years. And mostly it was just him telling me I'm full of shit and I don't know what I'm doing and don't know what I'm saying. So, yeah, I mean, that can be Yeah, sometimes it does come out. Like when people ask certain questions and what have you, it's really important that you not get certain parts of this wrong, because if you do and you spend a lot of time with those mistakes, and I've seen it, I've seen people spend a decade or 2 decades or 3 decades with the same mistake. If you do that, you waste the best training years, potentially the best training years of your life. And if they're not the best training years of your life, at least it was 30 years you could have done a lot more than you did. You know what I mean? Like people who think that, for lack of a better term, that all religion is the same and everyone's teaching the same stuff, and you don't actually need to train with anyone. You just need to sit down and follow your thoughts and it's going to turn out fine. And like all this other bullshit you read on the internet. Or somebody that spent like 20 minutes training in meditation and had a non-dual experience and now needs to teach everyone the truth that everything is absolutely the same. And by the way, they can train you in Mahamudra and Dzogchen and Advaita Vedanta and Thai Forest because it's all the same thing and they know what it all is after doing like 10 minutes of practice. By the way, they don't know what any of those things are if you ask them. So if someone's going down that road, it's like, from my perspective, it's like seeing the kid who's about to stick their finger in a light socket. It's literally like watching somebody who's about to electrocute themselves and they have no idea, because you can spend decades with that bullshit. And even worse, if you think you've really done something important, you're going to try to tell other people and convince other people you're right about this. And so you're going to lead a whole bunch of other people to sticking their finger in a light socket too. I mean, for goodness sake. Okay. Yeah. So Wombat, on the Theravada side, which I know is your main thing. Also, it's important to note that on the Theravada side, they tend to veer away from that sort of thing. They tend to say, just focus on your own practice. Don't worry. Sort of just kind of walk away from things where you might accumulate negative karma. Just walk away. you know, just focus on your own practice, your own thing, and that's fine too. Again, that's one style of practice. The Mahayana practice, it's compassion is sort of the main thing. So the ethics change a little bit. Malvina asks, what was the view behind the practice? Uh, with my main teacher, I think that's what you're asking about. It was mainly, well, he had 30 years experience or so in Okinawan Zen, and I think also Rinzai, and and then he encountered the Geluk Tibetan Buddhist tradition and trained in that for another, I don't know exactly what, maybe 20 years, and was recognized as an accomplished person in both traditions. And when he trained us in mainly in the Gelug tradition, is what we trained with him in mostly, he would also train us at the same time in Zen. And so when he was teaching us, for example, Mahamudra practice, he also taught us Zen practice through Mahamudra. So Mahamudra, of course, is a Gelug practice that comes through the Indian Mahasiddha tradition, and then Zen is a Chinese practice of Buddhism that is sort of like the one night stand of Buddhism and Taoism in China. and actually, they have very similar approaches when you get to that sort of higher level of practice. Right. Let's get into some practice. Otherwise, I'll get scolded by the boss. Okay, let me just change over the microphones, make sure it all works. Let's see. Right, just checking. Okay. Now I should be on the headset. I just turn that down a bit so it doesn't blast. The boss. The boss knows who the boss is. Okay, let's do a bit of practice. We'll do some standing work today, since standing work has been on my mind and we've been chatting about it a bit today. Would anyone like to do a progressive release practice instead of the normal standing practice that I do? Show of hands. Okay. Well, we'll do a progressive release practice then. Again, it's just another layer. Let's do it. I will pretend to know what that is. Excellent. Okay. Yeah, you came 30 minutes late, Hans. That's what happens. Okay, so body scanning meditation, in the way that I teach it, is a type of practice where, sort of like when we're doing intensive breath, you're placing your awareness basically in a non-conceptual way. Is the sound okay, by the way? It looks like it's a little bit too high. Like maybe it'd be good to turn it down a bit. Um, so progressive release, sorry. So body scanning, you're basically taking your awareness and you're putting it through the body like this. So when we put it on the breath, you're holding it on the actual tactile sensations and you're not doing anything with what you find there. You're just you're placing it there and you keep it there and you're observing what's there, right? You're not trying to analyze it, figure it out, do anything with it, etc. Same thing when you do body scanning, you place your awareness here in what you can actually feel in the hand, for example, then in the wrist, then in the forearm, the elbow, and so on, without modifying anything on your way through. Now, a practice that can be quite beneficial because your emotions also come out through the body, usually as tension or things going on with the physical body. One practice that can help is what's called progressive release practice in the internal arts, like Chinese internal arts. It's called, this would be under the category of neigong, internal skill, which then becomes neigong, internal power, which is something you'd use for martial arts. So with the sort of neigong version, you place your awareness. Let me pick an area where that my body actually sucks. So you'd place your awareness in the way that we do, for example, in the top of the shoulder, and you place your awareness first there in basically a non-conceptual way. Bang, it's there, and then you ask the muscles to relax. So you see, I was holding tension here while I was talking, and I asked the muscles to relax, and they go back to here, right? And then you put it on the side and you ask this muscle, first you observe it, then you ask it to relax. And see, again, it moves because there's a little tension there. Then in the front, ask it to relax. You see, and now it moves again because to hold it here takes those muscles in the front. Now it's here. And then in the back, asking those muscles to relax. I don't know if you guys saw that, but you can see it rolling this way slightly. I'll exaggerate it again. See? So you go to the different parts and you observe it non-conceptually, and then you ask it to release so that tension that doesn't need to be there releases. Okay. So that's progressive release. It is a type of Neigong practice that comes over from the Chinese health arts and Chinese internal martial arts, and quite helpful. It's if you have a lot of tension in the body, it can help release the tension in the body. So we'll do a couple rounds of Neigong style body scanning with that progressive release practice. So the first few rounds of placing the mind, I'll tell you to release, but that'll get repetitive, so I'm not going to say it every time. So once we get through a few body parts, I'll stop saying that, but obviously carry on releasing, okay? All right. So assume the posture that we normally do, or whichever one that you would like to do for now if you don't know the one that I teach. So place the awareness in, today we'll go from the top down. So place it in the just the upper part of your cranium, the top part of your skull, and just try to release any little bit of tension you might feel around the top of the skull. And then, roughly speaking, about 3 inches, a ring around your head. So, this would be, for those who are looking at the screen still, sort of here from your forehead around, right? Another ring, and just ask that ring to release. And then, same thing, make another ring here, about 3 inches or so, and ask all of that to release any tension that's there. And then, same thing here, another ring going around to the first part of the neck and the jaw, etc., and ask that to release. And now we'll do the middle third of the neck, and we'll go through the normal body parts that I use. So, middle third of the neck, place the awareness there. Now ask it to release any extra tension. You do have to have some tension to hold your body up, but anything that doesn't need to be tense, ask it to let go. And the lower third of the neck, the tops of both of your shoulders, ask them to release. The front of both of your shoulders, ask them to release. The sides of both of your shoulders, ask them to release. The backs of both of your shoulders, ask them to release. Into the armpits, release. Biceps, release. Now I'm just going to say the body part, place your awareness in the body part non-conceptually with an observing kind of awareness, and then release. But I'm not going to say release every time. So place the mind in the elbows, forearms, wrists, the palms, and the back of the hands, and the fingers. Now the upper third of your trunk, so the chest cavity all the way around. Now the middle third of your trunk, what I call the diaphragm belt. And the lower third of your trunk, not yet your pelvis, but just the waist area. So the waist belt. Now the pelvis, front and back. And anus, perineum, sexual organs. Now into your hip joints, into the upper half of the thighs, lower half of the thighs, knees, the calves, ankles, the heels, the arches, the balls of the feet, and the toes. Now we're going to reverse directions and we're going to do it a bit more rapidly. So the feet, ankles, calves, knees, lower thigh, upper thigh, hip, pelvis, sexual organs, anus, and so forth. The waist belt, diaphragm belt, the chest belt, shoulders, biceps, elbows, forearms, wrists, palms, fingers, fingertips, lower third of your neck, middle third of your neck, upper third of your neck, the first third of your skull, second third, and the third third, and then just the top of the skull. As a bonus, take your awareness from the top of the skull and very gently slide it down your spine. And when you get to your waist, then move the awareness inside your lower abdomen and just breathe into your lower abdomen without stretching it artificially. Just breathe into the lower abdomen for a few breaths. Okay. Mike. So if you're experiencing other voices talking to you, it'd be good to talk to a professional. I don't say that lightly, but um, if because you've made your mind quiet, it becomes difficult to tell whether or not a voice that your mind is generating is a voice your mind is generating or an outside voice, that's a big problem. And one of the things that can happen if you're doing a lot of meditation alone and you don't have people helping you and teaching you and what have you is not that external beings are going to start interacting with you and cause problems, but that your mind is the thing that makes everything else seem real to you, right? Your mind is the thing that is making this room look like a real room. Yes, there is a room, but the only part I get to see with my eyes when I look around is the part my mind generates. So your mind is in the reality generating business. You understand? So when you hear sounds, even normal sounds from other people, those people exist. Those sounds do exist, but the only part of the sound that you get to hear is the part that your mind generates. So the reason that sound from a real person, another person, right, like your mother or your father or whatever, seems real to you is that your mind is in the reality generating business. That's what it does for a living. So when you train your mind for the first time, all sorts of weird stuff can happen. And it all seems real because your mind is in the reality generating business. Of course it seems real because your mind is the thing that makes things seem real. That's what it does for every day, all day long. And if you want some sense of how powerful that is, go step outside at night on a cloudless night and go look at the stars. Just go look at the stars. That entire visual image of an entire universe is casually on a Friday night generated by your mind. An entire universe of visual experience is casually in a finger snap generated by your mind just because you happen to look up at the sky. Do you understand? This is how powerful, how unbelievably powerful your consciousness is. It's not just in the reality generating business, it's in the universe generating business. An entire universe of experience is coming into being out of your mind. Your faculty of hearing, of sound, stretches out for thousands or hundreds of thousands of miles in terms of how it generates the experience of an object. When you hear a sound and you go, that sounded like it was hundreds of miles away. What this means is that, yes, the ear was stimulated right here, but the way that that consciousness generates the experience of the world, it places that object hundreds of thousands away, hundreds of thousands of miles or thousands of miles or whatever away in your experience. Do you understand? So your mind is in the universe generating business. Even in a totally conventional, non-spiritual sense, your mind generates the images that seem entirely real to you of an entire universe. So of course, when you turn your mind inward and no one's telling you what's going on, and it generates all sorts of weird shit that you've never experienced before, like people talking to you or blue Buddhas melting through your head or spiritual looking beings or whatever. Some of those things can be real some of the time, but most of them are just your mind doing what it always does in a new context that's unfamiliar to you. So it's really easy if you gain even a little bit of capability because you're training a lot with no teachers. It's really easy to go fucking nuts. It's really easy to go crazy. This is why lineages exist, to stop you from falling off a cliff the first time something weird happens. All right? So truly and honestly and with no malice at all or judgment even, if you can't tell the difference between real voices and voices your mind is generating, you should stop meditating in the way that you are and you should talk to a professional for a little while. I don't want to say too much about that, Wombat. But they can be real sometimes. But if it's happening to you in the first 20 seconds of, I'm being hyperbolic, but if it's happening in the first like year or two of you meditating and it's weird stuff, and especially if it seems dark and evil, usually this is just stuff your mind is doing, and you've got to be very very careful that you don't go down You don't go down the road of psychosis because that happens to people. That's why I put up that video about mental health and meditation. Meditation can be really great, but if you get sort of decent at meditation with nobody's help and all the weird stuff that happens when you meditate starts happening, you'll either think you're really special, like you're a really, really special being now, or you'll go fucking nuts. Those are really prescient possibilities. Those are really, really strong potential possibilities. And both of them lead nowhere other than right back to what we've always been doing. So yeah, it's quite important that you have a lineage or some at least you're taking advice from somebody who can tell you what stuff is. I mean, Wombat, I won't tell people who you are, but you've had weird experiences doing my stuff where I've had to say, "Oh yeah, that doesn't matter," right? Here's kind of what it is and it doesn't matter. If you had been meditating on your own and that weird stuff had happened that's already happened to you, you might have spent months or years pursuing this weird stuff. Or you might have thought, "Oh, I'm really special now." You know? It's just or you might have thought it was other beings doing stuff to you or you know what I mean? So it's just really important that you have people with more experience that are kind of out ahead of you who can go, "Oh yeah, don't jump off that, don't jump down from there. That's a cliff. Don't follow that path. It leads to like a big crevasse that opens up and you're going to fall in and die." You know? Or, you could go that way, but it takes like 10 times as long. You could take this direction instead. It'll be a lot shorter. This is what lineage is for. This is what older brothers and sisters on the path are for. This is what mentors are for, is to help you make progress like this. No, don't be scared. Oh, I mean, the biggest measure of success is consistency, actually. It's consistency and then how high are the highs and how low are the lows, you know? If you notice that you're going like this, then you're headed the right way. It's sort of like the stock market, you know. As long as the trend is going like this, you're okay, even if you're going like this. Because real life, your practice will be more like this on your way up. It's not stable. But consistency and reduction of negative emotion in particular, and the increase of positive emotion, those are signs of success. Okay, let me hop off this broadcast, grab a quick freshen up my cup of tea, and I'll see you all for the Q&A.